Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to share my top 5 foundations with you. Foundation is just my absolute favorite part of makeup. I think it's the most important part because no matter what you do to your eyes and cheeks and lips, it just is not gonna look good if your foundation doesn't look good. So with that in mind, I have my top 5 foundations to show you as you guys requested. I'm gonna talk about each individual one. I'm gonna show you guys how I put it on. I'm gonna voice over certain parts just so we can keep moving. I have very oily skin, so oily that in 3 or 4 hours, normally if I don't wear any foundation, I have to keep blotting. I have very large pores and I do have texture. So with that in mind, these foundations help with all of those things and still work for me, even though some of these foundations are not meant for oily skin. And so in this video, I'm only showing you the application of each foundation because there are methods of application and different tools that can be used to apply it. I am not putting on any primer or powder or any of that. So what you're gonna be seeing after I talk about each foundation is just the foundation on and nothing else. So if you guys are interested, please keep watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe. That always helps me, you guys, and it means a lot to me. Thank you guys so much and please keep watching. My first foundation is the Natasha Denona Transformatte. I have color 50WN, which is warm neutral. This is quite interesting and rare to me in brands. A lot of them just focus on cool, warm, and neutral and don't do these like in-between colors. This is why I truly found my perfect shade. You guys probably remember from a lot of really old videos that I just always was in love with the Makeup Forever Matte Velvet Plus. This to me in formulation and color is the most similar to that one because while I am neutral, foundations that are truly just neutral can end up making me look a little dull. So so having that warmth in it brightens it up instantaneously, and I will show that to you guys in a few other foundations as well. This is a pore vanishing matte foundation. It is extremely mattifying. I have it on right here and I'm going to show you guys how I put it on as well. And it just is so easy to put on. It's a thicker foundation, but it does not feel that way. And I have really large pores and it really does cover them and make them look like they are not there, which obviously they're still very much there. But I really, really love this foundation. It's available at Sephora. I feel like their color range is good. It could be better, but I'm still very happy that they did think a lot about undertones with this, which I think is just the most important part of foundation. So if you guys are around my skin tone and also struggle with undertones, some people are just very olive and very cool and very warm, and it's just very easy for them to find foundations. I'm never that person. So if you are like me, I think that you might be able to find something in her range. So this is what it looks like. It is quite thick. As you can see, it's not really moving on my hand. This is a thicker foundation and the coverage is as such also. And I'm using my Flat Top Kabuki by Sigma. I always start my foundations on my cheeks and kind of work inward. I always like to work pretty quickly and then come back and move around some areas that I feel like didn't get coverage or that might look a little bit spotty. And if you notice, I always leave out my forehead. I like to keep that natural and just add bronzer instead. So this is what the Natasha Denona one looks like. I don't have my under eye concealer on, just because I want to show you guys just the foundation. I have not powdered, I haven't done anything. And if you guys notice, this one has this beautiful brightening effect. And I just love the coverage. It has virtually covered every problem area that I have. Just a little bit is still visible. It has such a nice feeling. It doesn't feel heavy at all to the touch. And it has dried down in this beautiful matte, velvety type of way, which I absolutely love. Next up, I have my McGrath Skin Fetish Foundation. It's in color medium 16. So this foundation is very thin. It is a light to medium coverage. You can layer it on to build. This is the one that is going to make your skin look very natural. I feel like it provides a really beautiful blurring effect, which I really like, which I think is very beneficial for people who have large pores because you need that blurring effect, but you don't always necessarily want it to be such full coverage where you feel like every pore is just so concealed and so much has gone into it. So that's why I really like this one. This is the one that I wear most often during my just normal work days because I feel like with all the other things that I put on, I can amp it up. But even then, it's not so light like a skin tint because it does provide coverage as well. So a lot of people really like to put this on with their hands. I still prefer a brush. I'm gonna pump it out and you guys can see how runny it is. This is about 3/4 of a pump, I would say. I'm going back to my Sigma FX brush. This is definitely a foundation that you can use with your fingers instead, but I do prefer to use brushes wherever I normally can. It's quite flexible, you don't have to necessarily find your absolute perfect shade, and it does move so quickly and so easily with any and all tools. So as you guys can see here, there is a sheen to this foundation. This is not meant to be mattifying or anything like that, but it provides this beautiful coverage while still brightening, while still looking like real skin, like you're alive and you're not like this corpse, because that can happen so easily with matte makeup. So I really do like how this looks. This is before powdering. I haven't done anything else to it. So third up is my Fenty Beauty foundation by Rihanna. This is in color 310 and it is the Pro Filt'r mattifying foundation. So I was very excited about this line just because, thinking of Rihanna, I knew it would be very inclusive. There would be a lot of colors, and because a person of color is making the line, I really thought that there would be a lot of thought given to undertones. This is one of my favorite foundations in terms of oil control. I think it does a really good job on that front. My only qualm with this is that it can oxidize so much that I had to really go through so much trial and error with this foundation, because when you first use a shade, it looks too light, and then it takes like 10 or 15 minutes, and then it morphs into like your real skin tone. And as a result, I tried so many variations that just didn't work. So finally, I realized 310 is my color. This also has a very thin type of consistency, but it really packs a punch in terms of coverage. This one dries down extremely quickly, so you have to work very fast with it. But let me show you guys how I wear this. So here is this. As you're seeing, it's moving not a whole lot, but it feels very thin when you actually pick it up and put it on. So for this one, I definitely am a huge advocate of a brush. I would not ever use something like this with my fingers. For this foundation, I definitely recommend having some time after you apply it, probably 20 to 30 minutes for it to set, for it to really look like your actual skin tone. And I will say, while I love the way this looks, this one does look like makeup and is not exactly super natural, but it looks so good if you plan on wearing a full face. Another thing to note with the Fenty foundation is that it does have a slight scent of some kind. It's actually quite pleasing. I'm not one who normally likes scents, but I do like the one that's in here. But here is the foundation. I feel like it's very brightening. It really, really does look good on my skin. As you can see, this also has a much more matte texture to it than the Pat McGrath one did. This one does feel heavier. I will say it does feel like I'm wearing makeup, but it really does give that very, very flawless look. My fourth favorite in this lineup is my Nars Soft Matte Complete Coverage Foundation. This is in the color Aruba. And this is very interesting to me because Nars really struggled with foundations for a little while. When they first had like the sheer matte and the sheer glow, they had such few colors. It was like, if you fit into that spectrum, great. If you don't, then sorry. They developed 2 other formulations, which I don't think they still have. They got rid of the sheer matte and they finally have replaced it with something that I think is here to stay, which is this one. First of all, I love the packaging. Because of the fact that it is a tube, it just feels so quick and so easy, and it makes it really easy for travel. The color range I still think could use some work. I am Aruba, but in other Nars ranges before, I have been Tahoe, I've been Syracuse, and I've even been Cadiz. So each type of foundation that they have, I'm something different. So the color is not consistent across all of their different foundations. This foundation, I just feel like looks like real skin, but can also look very glamorous, because there is something in this foundation that I really feel like makes my skin look beautiful, and not in that like foundation-y type of way. I feel like it has just the right amount of coverage to where it doesn't look like overkill. It can also look very natural depending on how you put it on. And it does a good job with oil control, and it just looks better and better throughout the day. So with this foundation, Nars is all about skin and using your fingers. And I do think there's a distinct difference when you use your fingers versus a brush. And I am going to show you both sides of my face done in each of these ways so that we are able to see both. I do prefer using my fingers for this foundation, but I do not prefer using my fingers in general. You do not need a lot at all. This is also a thicker foundation. As you can see, it's not really moving. And I'm gonna take my fingers and I'm gonna put this on, rub it on the way that I would like a moisturizer. I personally feel like this foundation looks more natural when you use your fingers. There's something about the warmth of your fingers that really works well with this formula. Then for the other half of my face, I am going to apply this with my brush. So this foundation I just think really needs, it's like less is more type of foundation. Using a brush gives you a little bit more coverage, but does look more like makeup, unlike when you use your fingers. So here's what this looks like. As you guys can see, there's a little bit of a sheen, but it is still very matte. This also reminds me of my Makeup Forever Matte Velvet Plus foundation. This has a slight stickiness to it, which the other foundations did not have. And it has that like velvety type of look, because I really do feel like it still looks like skin. And that is a big thing where I feel like with most, medium to full coverage foundations, they can often morph into like this paint-like type of look on your face, and this one just doesn't do that. I really think that they have finally figured out their foundations with this one. And this to me is different than the others because of it looking so skin-like while still being quite full coverage. And you will need the tiniest amount for this foundation. It does dry down matte very quick, so you do have to move quickly as well. And then last up in this foundation video is my Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation. I am the color 4N2, which is Spice Sand. And this is one of my absolute favorite full coverage foundations. I use this when I'm going for a super glam look and I want everything to be perfect. I use this when I plan to be out for a long time, like weddings, things like that. It really stays on. It does not budge. This is amazing for oily skin. It's super full coverage and their shade range is amazing. And what I'm really proud of is like Estee Lauder has been there for so long, and I also would kind of view it as like, it's like for my mom and like, that kind of thing. And I never viewed it as like a cool, fun brand, but they had figured out their colors and everything way before all these new companies did, because this color is not new to their range. It's not something that they added a few years ago. I discovered this probably 5 years ago and they had it then too. And I would say I like to apply it with this because I don't like it to be that like in your face. If you are really going for that like super full coverage look, I would go with a brush like this, like a flat top synthetic fiber brush. My makeup artist for my wedding also used this foundation and she applied this, but what she didn't do is go down like this. She literally stippled it on and patted it into areas that needed extra coverage. So that is just a little tip for you guys, and I'm gonna show you guys how I wear this. So with the Estee Lauder Double Wear, I am Spice Sand 4N2. The N stands for neutral, and this is neutral 2. They even have a 4N1 and a 4N3. And this is what I feel like really makes the shade range so good, because again, it's like the other foundation that I talked to you guys about, the Natasha Denona one, where they had a neutral, but it was a warm neutral. So my understanding is that when you have like an N1, N2, and N3, there has to be a little bit of a difference in each one. I would assume that would be a cool undertone and a warm undertone, which is why this still works for me. If I go just completely neutral, where a lot of brands literally are just gonna be like W for warm, C for cool, and N for neutral, then a neutral foundation that has no other type of element to it can make me look very harsh, and it can look very sort of not bright and not real. And so that little bit of warmth is very important for me, and this company has done a really good job with the colors. So here's the foundation. It's kind of all over the place. Another little tip is sometimes when I want to share out the coverage of this, but I still want the benefits of the oil control and it really lasting, then I will use a beauty blender. And sometimes I go in with the beauty blender to add that extra layer because it still gives that coverage, but because of the water in there, it's like sheer. It's not like that stiff and like really full on. This is just that foundation where I just know I can keep my eyes closed and it's still gonna look awesome. This one has really worked so well for me, and I would highly encourage you guys to check it out. I know a lot of people are not into some of these older brands. So here we are. This is what the Estee Lauder Double Wear looks like. I mean, the flawlessness of this foundation really is next level. All the others, even while some of them advertise themselves as full coverage, like the Fenty, it does not give you full coverage like this. This is one layer. I have not layered anything on. I haven't added anything, and I really love it. This also has a little bit of tackiness to it, like the Nars one did. It does not dry down completely matte and like stick onto your skin. So I would always powder this, otherwise there's gonna be a lot of transfer. Even if you don't need that oil control or any of that, I would still powder this. You can literally go in at this time if you want for extra coverage and just pat it on to like certain area. This is also one of the foundations that I feel like can go over my darker area, which is my chin, and still make everything look good without making it look gray. And that is not something that a lot of foundations do. A lot of foundations can go on to a darker area and turn that area gray, but this one doesn't do it. And that's something that I had noticed about this foundation from the get-go. So that is it for my top 5 foundations video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I'm always happy to engage and talk to you guys and learn more about what you guys are enjoying. So if there are other foundations that you think would work really well for me, please let me know. I always love to hear what you guys think. Take care and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.